Welcome to Wire Guild. This tutorial is a woven bangle and you can use it with either gemstone or beads. Sort of show you how to use it with a gemstone, I'm sure you can work it out, but the majority of the tutorial I've done with beads. You're going to need some 1.6mm or some 14 gauge round wire. You'll need double the length that you're going to make, so if you're making a 7-inch bracelet you'll need 14-inch. I use 0.4 to weave with and a lot of it, but you can use a finer one if you want. And then I used a couple of lengths of 0.8 or 20 gauge round wire just to go around the beads, or if you're going to do a gemstone it'll go around the gemstone. So I started off with my wire and I'm going to make this approximately 7-inch. I've got a kink on the end, so I'm just going to get that straightened up, because when you're using such thick wire as this, which is 14 gauge or 1.6mm, you really want it to be fairly straight when you start. Obviously you can't get it exact, but as near as you can get it. So I've got 14-inch, which is double the 7-inch that I want to make. Now I could mark that if I had a pen handy, which I don't, but if you mark the middle spot on yours, I'm just going to pick it up with my pliers here, and then I'm going to grip on with the pliers quite low down near the end, because I don't want a big bend here. I want this to be quite tight, and I'm going to bend around the pliers. You need to be quite firm with it because it is a thick gauge wire, but you can't really use anything much lighter, it won't hold its shape. So I'm just giving that a squeeze. Let's get it as close as I can, and then I want that tighter, so I'm going to get normal, these are snipe chain nose pliers, straight over the top and then slowly press down nice and tight. I want to open this up a bit. Now when you open like that it always splits one up one down, but if you put your pliers over the end and then you just slide your fingers in, it will open it up the way you want to go. So I'm getting a V shape. I don't want it too wide, I'll show you why. It's just, look, you see, this is what you get for not measuring. I haven't got it quite even, so I'm just going to snip that bit off. There we go. It doesn't really matter with this bracelet, it's adjustable anyway, so you know, little tiny bit. So this is one that I've made with a stone in, and this is the back, and as you can see you've got this nice sort of delicate, I'm just checking that the similar size opening, which it is there, but it's dependent on the stone that goes in the middle. So let me have a look. I've got a labradorite cabochon there, and that would be, it's very slippy labradorite cabochon. Come here. Right, let's get this. Your stone would obviously sit in the central point, so because my wires are going to need to be 7-inch, they're a little bit over, but can you see this little curl on the end? I need to do that on both ends, so I'll do that first. Let's just get some round nose pliers. For some reason I've stuck to another pair. There we go. So I'm going to curl this outwards, not inwards, outwards. So, oops. It's always hard when you've got really thick wire to get right on the very end, but try and get as near to the end as you can and then make it as tight as possible, and I'm just easing that round. It's sometimes easy to twist and then release and re-grip than it is to try and twist your hand all the way around. It's comfier. So 2 little curls. There we go. Let's get those tight. Right, now then. So the central point of my bracelet, it's a little bit short of 7.5-inch, but sorry, 7-inch, but it's near enough. You can see you can have an opening on the underside, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm looking for the central point because that is where my stone would sit. Now if I used a larger stone like that, you can see it's sitting over the top of the wires, which wouldn't look that good. Or I've got all sorts of bits and pieces here. Hang on a minute. A small square stone, which I quite like. You see, that would be the right sort of angle, the distance between, whereas something like that you'd have to open the wires right up so that the larger stone would sit on. So you really want to have decided which stone you're going to use, if you're going to use a stone, before you start and do your weaving. Now I'm going to show you two different ways with this. So I'm just going to do a smallish opening in the middle, but I need that to be central. Now there's an easy way to do this. This is the halfway point. You could either mark this straight onto the wire with a Sharpie, or if like me you tend to work on paper, which I always do, you can make, sorry I thought my pencil was blunt then, a mark on the paper, and I can put my piece up to it, and then I can measure my 3.5 inches, which would put me at the halfway stage, and put a line there. Then I have got something very, very obvious. It can't rub off, it can't move away, I can't cover it up and hide it with wire or anything. That is how far I need to bind to get to the halfway point. If I was using that stone, that would be about the right size. So I don't need to pull it open anymore or close it together, but I want it to sit nicely at that point. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to work directly from the reel. Sorry, feels like I'm wrong way around, I don't know why. Right, pass that through. Let's just get it wrapped round a few times. So 3 or 4 times just to get it going, so that you've got a nice strong anchor point, and then I'm going to slide that all the way down. Obviously we can't work from the top because we need this increase in size, so it has to be in position, and then you can start and wrap the wire around and then push that as far in as it'll go into your corner. Oops, there goes my pencil. Alright then wrap this round. Sorry, hands are out of shot. Come back, I'll show you the end. Through. That's it, and around. Then back up through the middle. Get the wire onto the correct side. Back through the middle. And push down with your finger. See how my index finger then pushed it down? Wrap around the other side, going around once, going around again, pulling that down, cross to the other side, round again. Each time it's a figure of 8. So going round, push down, round the other side, and push it in with your thumb. Push that in, and then wrap around, and then figure of 8 to the other side, and wrap around. Now you're going to be doing this for quite a while, and there is no way that I'm going to film all this for you, because you would be quite bored to tears of me just going backwards and forwards over it. So let's just show you a little bit more. I am pulling tight because I want to maintain this V that we've got here. I don't want to pull it so that they close up. It needs to be done gently so that it doesn't close the two wires together. We're just gradually increasing the gap in between, sliding it up and in all the time and wrapping round. Whoops, I'm trying to get it so you can see it easier. There we go. And round, but I'm just doing the same thing. Round twice, through, figure of 8, round twice, figure of 8, and then round the other wire. Now, I'm going to speed this up for a bit, because like I say, you'll just get bored watching me do this. So this is whizzing along. I think this is like 64 times as fast as it really is. Now then, let's have a look. Once you've done quite a bit, you can see immediately by putting on the paper how far you are. You can also see if you're not quite straight. My bottom row has been pulled tighter than the top. So I'm just going to loosen the bottom and then push the top up, making it, that's a bit better, a bit more even. But you can see I've still got further to go, so we'll whiz through that. Let's have a look. Still doing exactly the same thing. We can see I'm not pulling tight between. Let's see. Now, it looks like you've got there and you think, yay, I've finished. I can stop now. And you could bring your other two ends together and carry on. However, if you push these as hard as they'll go down and really, really pull, you can see you've actually got a bit further to go. So I'm going to pull these down as far as I can, because I want the weaving to be really tight. And we'll just do a bit more fast whizzy weaving there. And I keep checking it against my piece of paper to see how far I've got. Now then, let's have a look now. There we go. So I've got to the halfway point. Now I know that it's well pushed down, so it's nice and tight. So now when I pull against it like that, there shouldn't be much in the way of movement. So pliers on. Push the wire down a little bit, grip, bend in. Pliers on, grip, bend in. Now you can see I've bent in much further than it needs to be, but then I can bring the end wires back till the little loops just touch. Then ease it out and ease it out until it sits nicely. Now can you see that lumpy bit there? I need to straighten that. So pliers on and just push. You're better off doing this 24 times gently than doing it really, really hard once and really bending your wire and mangling it out of shape. They're not quite exact at the end. I've probably bent one a little further one way than the other, but it doesn't matter. So I need to weave now down from the middle to the end. However, there's a problem with that. If you use your finer wire and you weave downwards, so you're decreasing in size, it slips. If you weave upwards, so it's increasing in size, it's much easier. It's sort of a swings and roundabouts thing. If you carried on from where you were and worked downwards, you've got the advantage that you can take the wire in and out of the open end. However, because the wire slips all the time, it's really annoying. If you start at the other end, like I'm about to do now, I'm going to wrap around this top end. You have to pass the wire through the hole in the middle. So you can't wrap around the edge because it's no longer an open area. So I've wrapped around 3 or 4 times to get started. I'm going to push that up towards the little loops in the end. And then I'm going to do my figure of 8. And the first stitch I can actually go through the open end. But once I've done that first one, got the ends neat, and wrapped that, I have effectively blocked the end. Then I pass the wire through the middle, so I can't work off the reel. I've had to cut myself a length off. And I'm going to pull this through, all the way through the middle. Now I've cut myself a length off that's probably about 18 inch to 2 foot. That's 45 to 60 centimeters, something like that I've cut off, and that's what I'm working with, and I'm passing it through the middle each time. So I wrap around twice, go to the other side in a figure of 8 movement, and then wrap around there twice. Press it through the opening in the middle. And can you see that little kink there? At the moment it's little loops, so undo it, because if I pull it tight you'll have a proper kink in your wire, so do it before it gets tight and pull through. Now although pulling the wire through the centre of the body of the piece is not as easy as having an open end, I would still prefer to do it this way and be working on an increase in size so that my weave's not constantly trying to slip down. But it's one of those things, You'll probably end up trying it both ways, and you'll work out which way you prefer to do it. So I'm going to work from that end, and I'm going to come right up to the middle, and I'm not going to make you watch because you've already seen me do the other side. So as I say on Blue Peter, here's one I did earlier. So I've got my weaving done right up to the middle. You can see there's a tiny little gap there in the middle, but it's not really going to make a lot of difference in that. Now then, if we were going to add a stone, which I'm going to show you how to do, let me just show you the different things you could do, because like I say, you can do all sorts of different things with this. I've got a couple of bracelets here. You could put the bracelets on. It's a shame they don't match in size, but anyway, it's just to give you an idea. You could put the fine wire through the beading, and when you bent it round, they would lift slightly in the middle, which would give you this really sparkly edge. And you could put some extra wires over the top to hold them in place. But I'm not going to use those, so we'll pop those away. These are just for ideas for you, so that you've got, you know, different ideas to play with. Beads. This is a couple of amethyst beads and a Swarovski bead in the middle, and it looks quite nice with 3 beads. I do like 3 beads. I always go for odd numbers, and I would put the bead onto the fine wire and then pass the fine wire to the other side and wrap it round, and that's what would hold the beads in place. Let's see what more would look like. Let's see, another amethyst bead either side, and maybe a smaller bead on the end. Let's have a look at that. Oh, that's... Oop. Yeah, they're lively. Let's pop them back. Oh, nope. Sit. I think I need blue tack on them. They don't want to go on, do they? There we go. That looks really nice. What else have we got that I can show you? Let's take these off. Get them out of the way. Let's have a root. This is that ruby that I showed you right at the beginning, which I really like the look of this. I think it looks really cute. Now you can see it's got a deep faceted back, but it doesn't matter on this weave because it just pushes into the weave and the weave cradles it at the back. Now then, put you to one side. What else have I got? Oh yeah, these are beads. So these have got holes through. These have got these are abalone or power shell, and they've got little holes through the middle. You see, they look really super on the copper. I don't know if I like 3. Maybe 1's better. And of course, you'd thread that through just like a bead. You'd use one of your fine wires and wrap it against the top to do that with it. That's kind of nice, is that? I like that bright blue. It'd look nice when the copper's oxidised. Have I got anything else kicking around I can show you? It's so versatile, is this bracelet. You can kind of add anything over the top because you've got so much, you know, available space. Let's have a look at these. These are 8mm Swarovski beads. Ooh, no, I really don't like them with that shell. Get rid of the shell. Ooh, the beads on their own look really cute. You might notice I always go for odd numbers. It's either 3 or it's 5 or it's 1. I'm not really into... No, you see 6 doesn't look right. It just looks all, I don't know, crowded. Wrong. Anyway, let's get these out of the way. I will be using those though in the end piece, but probably not that many. Let me show you how to fasten a stone on. This of course doesn't have a bead hole in it, so I can't pass the fine wire through it. So I'm going to use these 2 ends of fine wire that we've got to actually hold the stone in place. Because it's got square ends, I can just go up over the top of that corner, round the top, pass it back through, and sort of, it's almost like stitching it in place. Now I've put both sides on and stitched that through and pulled it tight, just so you can see that, I mean I haven't tucked any ends in or anything, but it's so you can get an idea. Now let me show you the round one. You can see the lines of the wire. This is 0.8 wire, and I've just wrapped around the frame and curled the edges. I've used the finer wire to then stitch through that framework. So you can use any of the frameworks in the other tutorials that we've done and just stitch your what would normally be like a pendant or something like that, and just stitch it onto this bracelet. If you want to start with it in situ like I've just got a couple of pieces of square wire here. You don't need to use square, you could use round or whatever, and I've just twisted the wires together a couple of times just to give me the same shape as the square stone. Then what I would do is I'd lay this over the top of the stone using the fine wire that's already holding the stone in place. I would start and bind over the top these extra wires in place. These extra wires aren't really holding the stone, I mean they're adding to the security of it, but really what they're doing is just making it look more finished off. I would then probably put a curl in on the side here like that, so that the wire comes back down the other side of the stone, and I would use the fine wire to go through and stitch that curl through like that, and then I would stitch that little curl into place which would hold that wire down. Once I got the bottom part stitched in and the other side, the whole stone would be perfectly secure and it would look really nice. You could then shape the bracelet up and wear it. Now just unwrapping, you can see how easily I just pop that in. Just take the stone out. Right, let's just unloop that wire because I actually passed through the body of the bracelet that time. Now even though I have sort of half demonstrated putting a stone on so you know what you're doing, you can straighten this out now with your finger, even though it's a bit kinky. Just rub it out with your fingers. There we go. If you've got any nylon jawed pliers, something like that, you can use them to do this. My fingers are a little bit like old boot leather anyway, so I tend to use my fingers. Now where did those beads go that I liked? Where are they? Whoops, I've just kinked one of my wires there, so I'm just pushing that back in. Now take this wire down. Now if you have very small beads, I don't and I could do it, but I'm going to show you this anyway in case you have. You would pass through the centre of the bracelet. Don't pull tight. Hold it with your fingers and support it, and then bring the end back up through that central gap. And what you're doing is you're repositioning your wire so that it's central and it's right in the middle. Then if you've got little beads, you can pop them right in the middle. With a larger bead it doesn't really matter as much, like I'm going to be using, but I wanted to show you that because these little tiny seed beads, seed pearls, would look lovely if you sort of encrusted the middle with them. So my bead goes on, and then I can just take my wire down to the other side. Come on. Get it nice and straight. And then wrap all the way around. Thread it back through and pull it tight. And then my first bead is in place. And if you just wanted one bead on there, you could stop at that point, trim your ends off, tuck the ends in, and finish with that. But I'm going to keep going and wrap that round and just pass that through a little bit further along. Now if I go in further along, that's not quite far enough. If I put another bead on there, it's not going to fit, so I'm going to go round again, moving a little bit further out. Where do I need to be for this bead to fit? About there. Popping the bead on is always a good gauge. It will tell you exactly where you need to be. Now where did I throw that bead? There we go. Pop you back on. I'm putting these fairly close together because I want them to be quite tight. You could space them out on yours if you wanted. And then I'm going to wrap around the other side and just pull that tight. There we go. If you didn't want that little crossover wire, can you see how that wire's going sideways there, like that, over the other wires? If you wanted to avoid that, what you can do is just trim off the wire that's already wrapped around. I'm just going to smooth that end down. That's it, I'm smoothing down, making sure there's no little sharp bit. And then actually bring the wire up where it needs to be. There we go. And there goes the bead. And wrap around. I'll probably go round again. Make myself a little bit of room just there. There we go. And pull that tight. If you use a new piece of wire for each bit, obviously you're not going to get any sideways bits where you've wrapped to. It's up to you. It depends how you want to do it. I'm not that bothered because I'm going to put some more wires over the top of this, and that will disguise any of the fine wires that are actually hiding, that are holding the beads in place. So we'll just stitch that on, and those are my 3 beads. I think I might leave it at 3, you know, it's kind of nice, is that there. I think if I ever get many more it's going to be a little bit too much. Let me just look at another 2. Whoops. Sit there. Yeah, I think that might be a little much. I'll leave it at 3. So let's just stitch these round and then we'll finish the edge bits off. Pull it tight. If you get it really straight, as you pull tight, what will happen is it will slide in with the other wires that you've already wound around, and it'll disappear. Sorry, my cat's just decided to come in and shout at me. We'll ignore him. And wrap that one around. He's being very naughty, he's Loki. Right, let's smooth that down. And the same. Shush. There we go. Let's pull that tight and clip off and then press down. That's it. And then what you're going to do is decide is what you're going to do with that. So I'm going to trim off just a couple of lengths. There's probably about 12 inches, 10 inches, 12 inches, which is 30 centimetres ish. And I use 2 because I always like to put 2 wires together. You've probably known when you've done the chaos pendant that I do like my 2 wires together. You could use 1 if you wanted something a little bit lighter. And I'm just going around that centre bead and pushing it down. Sorry, my cat is being very demanding. I will throw him out in a minute. And wrap around the other bead and bring it upwards. If you can't push them down with your fingers, if your fingers aren't quite strong enough, you can always use your pliers to ease that down. Let me just, there we are. Just push that into place. And sorry, I really am sorry. He's very cross with me at the moment. He talks a lot, does our Loki. Alright, let's just wrap that bit around there and up to the top of the piece. Okay, so they're wrapped around the beads. It's slightly moved where the beads are. The central one's sort of gone slightly higher up, but I quite like that actually. So wrapping all the way to the side, and then I'm going to make a curl, pressing my finger against it. There we go, I'm running it down. Now if you wanted, you could actually just trim this off, curl it round and stitch it on with finer wire into the middle, but I'm going to actually wrap it into the side of the bracelet. So I'm making myself a gap, and then I'm just going to take these 2 wires, one at a time. One at a time is often easier. And just curl them through the edge and pull that tight. Then do the same with the other one. It will give me a slight opening in the weave. Like I say, if you don't want that, do the curl on the top and stitch it into place with finer wire. Let's just press that down. But I really don't mind, I actually quite like it. So I just trim those short and then press those over, smoothing them down. Now then, let's get the other end. Popped off again, but it doesn't matter. So another curl, fingers pressing against the framework of the bracelet all the way around and down so it matches the other side. Now if this is not absolutely spot on, it really doesn't make any difference. It's going to be curved, it's going to be on your wrist, and it's not going to be, you know, it's not an engineering feat. This is not a bridge and where if we were slightly off the whole thing's going to fall down. It's not going to matter. So the wires back through that little gap that I've just created. And it is quite a little gap on this side because I've actually got this side slightly tighter, but it'll still go through. And then pull the wires tight. That's it. Smooth that round. Trim off and press down. There we go. Slide those wires up. Now, can you see how that's all floppy and raised up? Well, that's no good. So using some fine wire, we're going to stitch that down. Now this is the same sort of stitching you do if you decided not to attach this to the frame, if you decided just to leave a curl on top. So I've gone through one of those loops, pulling it down to the frame, and I'm going to wrap around, pull it tight and around. There, you see that holds that quite nicely. Pull that around, make sure it's straight and parallel to the other one. Give it a push from my pliers and thread it back through. Oops, go on. Doesn't want to go through. Straighten the end up, it might help. There we go. And pull it tight. Trim nice and close and smooth down. And the same with the other end. Oops. Press that in. And smooth it down. Okay. No lumpy bits. Now it's actually quite secure, but I'm going to put another piece in just there anyway, just to absolutely make sure of it. So through the two wires and through the body of the bracelet. Pull that through. If you've got a long length, sometimes it can be awkward to fight with it and you end up pulling and pushing and it won't quite work. With the shorter length sometimes it's a little bit easier, so never fight with a too long amount, trim it off. Pull that tight. Will you go through again? It's getting really tight in how much space I've got now. It doesn't really matter if it won't go through again because I have gone through once, but yeah, there we go. Trim it off and press it down. Now then, is there any room for you to go through? No. You go in. Sometimes it's easier to push through with your fingers, sometimes it's easier to push through with the pliers because you can grip the wire lower down. If I can't get it to go through, which I don't think I can, but I've just trimmed the end to make sure that it's not sticking up. I can trim that because the other one went through twice But let me just see if I can go in anywhere. It really doesn't want. Oh well, I'll just trim that off and we'll press it down, it'll be fine. If I'd only gone round once with the other, I'd have kept trying, but seeing I went round twice, that'll be alright. Right, let's have a look. So, there's a few little bumpy bits. Now what you can do is just take your pliers and just smooth those over. This is the sort of thing that makes it look that little bit different when you've finished it. It just gives it a little bit more professional, if you like, if you've got all these ends and lumps and bumps smoothed away and tucked in. Yeah, I really like those beads, they're really nice, they're sort of sparkly and bright. Little sharp bit there, so just gonna smooth that over. It's one of the things you never want. You never want to have little sharp bits, because it's guaranteed the first person to pick it up will notice the sharp bit. So there's one with a stone on, there's one with beads on, and I'm going to go and oxidise that. And I'm sure that when you have a go, you'll have fun. I'm shaping this. You know, I've never had my ring mandrel on me. This is a lovely little pot that a potter friend of mine made for me. It's brilliant, it just does the right shape for the back of your wrist. It sits gorgeous on there. But I need something to do the edges. What have I got handy kicking around? I can use the actual coil of wire that I worked from to just bend those sides in. So just rolling it round there, one side and then the other, and then I can do any adjusting that I need to do with my fingers. It doesn't need a fastener. With that nice thick wire and then all the weaving on, it's perfectly strong enough to maintain its shape. And it just fits like that. Personally, I think it'll look a lot better when I've oxidised it. But then again, I always do. You've got a bit of give there. So it makes it nice for sale because it's adjustable. Nice and stretchy. Pretty beads. Oh, I do like those sparkler, those beads. But you could go all the way along to the end if you wanted. If you had smaller beads, you could go, you know, all the way. Or, like I say, you can use a cabochon and then add beads to either side. But whatever you decide to do, I'm sure it's lovely. It's a wonderful base to work with. So that's what it looked like after I oxidised it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Happy wrapping.